An island falls, a legend rises. The unstoppable Mongol Empire, led by Khotun Khan, launches a blistering invasion of Japan in the late 13th century, its full might crashing down on isolated and ill-equipped Tsushima Island. The opening night of battle sees Jin Sakai as the sole free survivor of Tsushima's military and the last of the samurai on the island. He must navigate the horrors of war to free his imprisoned uncle, liberate his homeland, and confront Khotun Khan before the Mongols attack the main islands of Japan. But in this struggle, white and black blend into shades of gray, and Jin must fight an internal battle to retain his samurai honor, while at the same time donning the persona of the Ghost, whose necessary tactics are nonetheless disgraceful to Jin's long-held code. This is the story of Ghost of Tsushima. Though Ghost of Tsushima and its characters are fictitious, they're based on a very real conflict, the Mongol invasions of Japan near the end of the 13th century. As such, it's important to establish the historical, social, and cultural background of the time. The Mongol Empire spread like wildfire from its core in the east-central steppes of Asia during the 13th and 14th centuries to become the largest contiguous empire in human history. A lightning campaign of merciless advance saw rival after rival bend knee in fealty to the universal ruler Chinggis Khan. Those who opposed were massacred. A blend of military innovation, socio-political manipulation, and a frightening mystique of invincible barbarism gave Chinggis, in a few short years, an empire that included much of China, Central Asia, the Middle East, and even threatened the kingdoms of medieval Europe. Though Chinggis died in 1227, before the Mongols reached their ultimate expansion, the Chinggisid dynasty he founded survived many decades before it eventually fractured into four large khanates. The Ilkhanate ruled over southwestern Asia and the Near East. The Golden Horde traveled the steppes and plains of Eastern Europe and Western Asia. The Chagatai Khanate controlled Central Asia and its many important trade routes. And finally, Kublai Khan ruled the Eastern Mongol Empire under a new Chinese dynasty named Yuan. Kublai retained the title of supreme ruler and nominally held the greatest influence among the empire, but each khanate was largely independent. Kublai's early years were riven with conflict as the nascent Yuan dynasty were threatened by the remnants of the Song dynasty to the south and the eastern kingdom of Goryeo, which occupied the Korean peninsula. Conquests in the Mongol style followed. Blistering campaigns with maneuverable infantry supported by sure-shot cavalry and cutting-edge weapons of war decimated the Song dynasty. Goryeo was reduced to a vassal state ruled by a hostage prince. With the Korean peninsula and northern China firmly under Yuan control, Kublai Khan next set his sights on the mythical islands of Japan to the east. His exact reasons are unclear, but several factors might have informed this decision. It was a widely held but false belief that Japan was overflowing with gold and other precious gems and metals, a symbol of untapped, unimaginable wealth. Japan was also a militarized state whose feudal system of vassalage birthed a powerful warrior class, the samurai. If conquered, its armies could be used to great effect against Kublai's enemy, the Song dynasty in southern China. The Khan's reputation was also at stake. During his wars in China, Japanese pirates and war profiteers were believed to have assisted the Song and disrupted Mongol strategies in the region. Their superior navigation and shipbuilding were meddling thorns in the Khan's side that needed to be pulled. Like with many of their previous conquests, the Mongols first appealed through diplomacy, and only if Japan denied their supreme authority would they resort to violence. Yuan China sent many embassies to Japan in the years between 1268 and 1274 to win over the islands by reason or intimidation. Demands for tribute and acquiescence were married to vague but thinly veiled threats of destruction, should they be refuted. Kublai referred to the emperor simply as a king of Japan, while declaring himself the Japanese natural overlord, which only infuriated the islanders. All attempts at friendly relations or negotiations were coldly ignored. To Japan, the Mongols were strangers not well understood, and the imperial court decided the best course of action was inaction. But the continual and costly fighting with his Song rivals to the south forced Kublai Khan's hand. he couldn't afford to wait forever, so considered Japan to have rejected his entreaties. Plans were made, supplies gathered, ships built and troops conscripted for an invasion of the recalcitrant Japanese islands in late 1273 and into 1274. Such an enterprise was foreign to the Mongols, who as a steppe people campaigned almost exclusively across expanses of land, not water. The logistical difficulties would become apparent in the years to come. The Japanese court and its military leaders under the Kamakura shogunate reinforced castles and erected defenses around the southwest island of Kyushu, as it was situated within close striking distance of the mainland and the likeliest target of Mongol aggression. By early November 1274, Kublai Khan had gathered a fleet of 500 to 900 vessels, upon which embarked an army estimated between 17,000 and 40,000 Mongols, Chinese, and Korean troops. Tsushima and Iki Islands were small, remote, and extremely vulnerable, closer to the Korean peninsula and without the numbers or defenses of Kyushu. Isolated, they bore the brunt of Kublai Khan's first assault. So Sukekuni, the deputy governor of Tsushima Island, had only a force of 80 strong, but still coordinated stiff resistance against the Mongol invaders. Differences in military technology and tactics were immediately apparent. The Mongols deployed gunpowder bombs, poison-tipped arrows, and sword and shield attacks that were coordinated by war drums. The Japanese, used to combat in which samurai challenged their targets in duels, were confused and overrun by hordes of foes. But the samurai longsword and heavy armor made each a difficult foe to defeat. In a last-ditch cavalry charge, Sukekuni and all his samurai perished. Both Tsushima and Iki Islands were overwhelmed by numbers, and isolated from necessary aid, fell quickly to the Mongols' advance. Their villages were razed and lands plundered before the Khan's forces landed on Kyushu proper. Despite securing a beachhead and camping in Hakata Bay for nearly 3 weeks, the invading force didn't penetrate deeper into Japan, and in fact, slowly sounded the retreat, ferrying its armies back across the channel to the continent. Successful Japanese resistance to the apparently unstoppable Mongols emboldened the imperial court and the shogunate. When diplomatic overtures were again made by Kublai Khan in 1275 and 1279, they were flatly refused. The heads of the diplomats were sent back to Yuan China as a definitive remark on Japan's independence. In 1281, the Mongols launched a second invasion of Japan, again stopping first in Tsushima and Iki to ravage the lands and spread fear. This invasion, however, was larger by a magnitude. Though sources from this time exaggerate numbers, it's claimed nearly 4,000 ships and 100,000 men were deployed against the Japanese. The speed at which Kublai Khan's fleet materialized was impressive, but would ultimately lead to failure. Legends have been passed down for centuries that the Mongols were defeated in both invasions not by the Japanese people, but by divine intervention. Unfavorable winds and wood-shattering waves, stirred up by massive typhoons, struck the Mongol fleets anchored along the coast, both in 1274 and 1281. The tumult of these storms forced the Mongols to retreat in their first invasion. It had even greater impacts on the second. Because speed in the attack was most critical, ships requisitioned or constructed for the second invasion were of poor quality. To amass the number of vessels necessary in such short time required dangerous cutting of corners. As such, many ships used by the Mongols were little more than fishing boats or rafts lashed together by simple rope. The typhoon that roared into Hatake Bay dashed hundreds of ships and drowned thousands to tens of thousands of Mongol invaders. Estimates suggest nearly 2/3 of Yuan forces were killed or immobilized. Thus was born the legend of the kamikaze, the divine wind that protects the Japanese islands from outside threats. Such winds were instigated by the Shinto god of war, and it became a source of great veneration. With the second invasion destroyed, Tsushima was reclaimed and resettled. Though the fear of Yuan conquest remained, the people of Japan now knew they had a divine guardian watching over them. Great conquests, and history in general, paint a grand picture, but broad strokes with little attention to narrative detail. What was it like on Tsushima Island in the wake of Mongol invasion? How did people survive the plundering, and what sense of loss do they have to endure? It's this ambiguity Ghost of Tsushima attempts to elaborate. It focuses on the story of one samurai and the difficult, personal choices that face him as he struggles to reclaim his homeland from an outside force. Jin was born to the renowned samurai clan Sakai roughly 3 decades prior to the Mongol invasion. His mother perished during his childhood, and his father, Lord Kazumasa Sakai, attempted to overcome parental ineptness by committing himself unceasingly to his samurai duties as a role model for his son, Jin. Kazumasa brought Jin with him on a campaign to pacify the bandits and pirates that had taken control of Iki Island. This was his first taste of conflict, and it would scar Jin for many years to come. Not only did Kazumasa, named the Butcher of Iki, ruin the upright reputation of Clan Sakai with his ruthless efforts, but he ultimately fell into an ambush on the island and was slain. Jin was frozen in fear, stunned to inaction while his dying father begged for aid. Guilt and shame weighed heavily on him for nearly 15 years. Orphaned following the Iki conflict, Jin became the young and inexperienced leader of Clan Sakai. He was taken under the wing of his mother's brother, Lord Shimura, the Jito, or governor of Tsushima, who raised the boy, trained him in the way of the samurai, and acted as a father figure to Jin. Lord Shimura impressed upon the youth lessons in honor, duty, compassion, and the steadfastness necessary to discharge his position as leader of a clan as well as samurai warrior. His wisdom shaped much of Jin's adult character. After many years, Jin had reached maturity and done well to erase the dishonor of Clan Sakai, placed by his father. He remains a steadfast ally to his uncle and ensures Tsushima thrives in peace. As threats of Mongol invasion hang heavy in the air through the early 1270s, Jin and Shimura prepare defenses as best they can. When the fateful day arrives, Lord Shimura leads a valiant but inadequate effort against landing parties in the Battle of Komoda Beach. The paltry number of samurai and Ashigaru foot soldiers are overwhelmed by the Mongols, led by Kublai Khan's cousin, the Khotun Khan. Fighting is fierce, Jin Sakai is seriously wounded, and Lord Shimura is taken captive. Jin is dragged to safety and his wounds treated by a peasant and thief named Yuna. She helps Jin evade Mongol raiding parties, outfits him with a horse, and guides him to Castle Kaneda, where Lord Shimura is held. Ever the samurai, Jin rushes to confront Khotun Khan, but is defeated and thrown from the castle's bridge, apparently plummeting to his death. But again, Jin is aided by Yuna and escapes the Mongol net in search of his body. In the harsh light of morning, reality sinks in. The people of Tsushima believe all their samurai protectors are dead. The Mongols are pillaging, raping, murdering, and razing the island as they continue their conquest. Lord Shimura, figurehead and leader of the island, is hopeless to resist Khotun Khan's march. It's in this light that Jin Sakai begins his transformative journey that is twofold. First is Jin's unwavering conviction in liberating not only Lord Shimura, but the whole of Tsushima from the predatory Mongols. Villages lie in ruin, the countryside is dangerous and lawless, filled with bandits and Mongol parties. Hidden camps harbor survivors that huddle in misery without a protector. Perhaps worst of all are those who've betrayed their people and turned to the Mongols' side. Jin wishes above all to free his uncle, but to infiltrate the castle prison requires the assistance of several others and their expertise. Jin Sakai must first use his skills to help Yuna free her blacksmith brother Taka, who then lends his forge to the samurai's cause. He must also help an old bowmaster pursue a wayward pupil in exchange for the man's long-distance support. So too does Jin seek the sword arm of the sole survivor of a murdered samurai clan, famed for their warrior women. In this manner, Yuna and Taka, Sensei Ishikawa, and Masako Adachi all pledge themselves to Jin's cause. It's through his infamy and heroic acts of rebellion against the Mongols that a legend is born surrounding Jin Sakai, and this marks his second journey, the transformation from samurai warrior into the Ghost of Tsushima.
このお方は猛虎を打ち滅ぼすため冥府から蘇った伝説の武者クロード様さ。 聞きたい言葉を言ってやるのさ。噂は広まってるよ、クロードの。
お主が言い始めたデタラメではないか。
クロードの力を信じてみんな村に残ってんだ。
It's a recurring theme throughout Jin's story that his notions of dogmatic samurai virtue, duty, and honor are challenged by the pragmatic reality of survival at all costs against foes that themselves have little honor. A samurai is one who not only embodies swift lethality, but also personifies the code of deference and compassion of the samurai way, ideals impressed upon Jin through his tutelage under Lord Shimura. But the samurai of Tsushima are gone. Their high virtue did little to save them or their people from the Mongol invaders. Jin is therefore forced to rethink his long-held beliefs. A samurai cannot disgrace themselves with such dishonorable acts as espionage, assassination, poisoning, and subterfuge, but it's precisely such acts that are needed to secure the safety and freedom of Tsushima Island. Sakai's situation forces him to adopt a pragmatic view on the unsavory business of survival. This coincides with the proliferation of a legend that a vengeful wraith haunts Tsushima. A ghost of a fallen warrior stalks invaders. Though ethereal and unseen, its chilling blade is all too real, as is the trail of bodies left in its wake. Jin Sakai, the samurai, is bound by a moral code, but the ghost of Tsushima is beholden to nothing in its vengeance. No deed is too savage for the ghost, who mercilessly hunts its victims. As the ghost, Jin spreads fear through the Mongol ranks and hope through the survivor encampments that share tales of his endeavors around flickering fires. One by one, Jin reclaims farmsteads, villages, and forts. He never loses sight of his ultimate objective, but as a man of the people and their only guardian, frequently offers his services to war refugees. It's in this manner that the ghost's notoriety grows, but he requires more sword arms to free his uncle. So Jin tracks down a man named Ryuzo, who leads the Straw Hat Ronin, a band of masterless samurai mercenaries. Ryuzo and Jin have a history. When both were coming into adulthood, Tsushima hosted a tournament and the pair confronted one another in a duel. Many lords used such tournaments to uncover potential and offered the most promising warriors positions as samurai vassals. Jin, already part of a storied clan and nephew to the Jito, had his future samurai station guaranteed, while the low-born Ryuzo hoped his success in the tournament might elevate him. Sakai beat Ryuzo and destroyed his hopes of becoming samurai. Though Jin wasn't cruel to his opponent, Ryuzo never forgot that day, nor the shame it brought him. The leader of the Straw Hats now despises the samurai class and harbors a deep suspicion of Sakai, so that when Jin approaches, Ryuzo first demands help. The Ronin exist on scavenging and raiding the Mongols, but their food stores are empty. They have little money, and men leave by the day. Jin promises Ryuzo to deliver vital supplies to the Straw Hats in exchange for their help in attacking Castle Kaneda. But multiple times he risks Ronin lives in strikes against Mongol camps without delivering on his promise of food. Not only that, he oversteps his bounds and speaks to the Straw Hats as an inspiring leader, a duty which is Ryuzo's, whose mistrust of Jin only strengthens. Eventually, a large supply of Mongol food and munitions is found, falling to assault by the Straw Hats. Placated for the moment, Ryuzo offers up his and his men's services to Sakai in the coming battle. Now, Jin's ability and audacity are strong enough. Now he has sufficient numbers to aid his uncle. Sakai gathers his allies and drafts plans for an indirect assault on Castle Kaneda. But when Ryuzo and his Straw Hat Ronin fail to appear on time, their strength is greatly diminished. Sakai nonetheless pushes the attack and uses his ghost skills to infiltrate and dismantle the castle's defenses. Only when he's near the heart of the fortress and his uncle's prison does Jin confront Ryuzo, and treachery is realized.
クロードの首を差し出せば褒美をもらえるとさ。お前、仲間が腹をすかしてんだよ。
The Straw Hats, after several empty promises made by Jin, have been bought by the Mongols. They receive food and safety in exchange for their swords. This isn't simply practical. Ryuzo's resentment of Jin for his disgrace in their duel at the tournament and for his misfortune of being denied samurai honors plays him straight into the Khan's hands. In his mind, Jin forced him to the path of the Ronin, and not only that, attempted to outdo him again as a leader among the Straw Hats during their earlier cooperation. Khotun Khan dangles a chance for retribution before him, alongside lavish promises of wealth for the Straw Hats, and Ryuzo takes it. He becomes a dangerous obstacle between Jin and Lord Shimura. In their duel, Jin begs Ryuzo to reconsider, that Khotun is the real threat and that there's still time to prove his loyalty to Tsushima. Though he defeats the Straw Hat in battle, Jin can't bring himself to kill Ryuzo, who escapes to lick his wounds where hatred continues to fester. Finally, Jin infiltrates Lord Shimura's prison, slays the guards, and frees the Jito. Their reunion isn't as warm as Sakai thought. The rumors of the ghost and his disgraceful actions haunt Shimura's conscience, who describes such conduct as unbecoming of a samurai.
捕虜になった時、お前の所業を聞かされた。
After he warns his nephew from straying beyond the moral path, the two secure Castle Kaneda in its entirety and drive Khotun's forces from the south. With Lord Shimura freed and southernmost Tsushima liberated, Jin's next order of business is to muster an army around the Jito and openly confront Khotun Khan. In Act 2, Toyotama, the middle region of the island, opens. With it come newly discovered horrors of Mongol depredation, but also new opportunities to forge strong alliances with displaced, lost locals. Sakai adds to his growing ragtag retinue the warrior monk Noroi, who pledges his loyalty and the arms of his comrades in Cedar Temple if Jin first helps him free the beleaguered monks. Lord Shimura also tasks Jin with establishing contact with a pirate named Goro, who can deliver a message for the shogun on the main islands of Japan, warning of the Mongol invasion, and requesting military reinforcement. While Jin and Shimura help Goro escape the Mongol blockade around the island, the Jito reveals that Goro also bears a request for the shogun, asking for Shimura's privilege to adopt his nephew. This significant gesture tells Jin that Shimura holds great respect for him as a man, a samurai, and a clan leader. He sees great potential in Sakai despite his dubious methods, and believes that he is well suited to inherit the mantle of Jito and the legacy of Clan Shimura. Word too reaches them that Khotun Khan has left Toyotama and marched to Tsushima's far north, where he's captured Castle Shimura in a symbolic show of subjugation. He still has as retainer Ryuzo and the Straw Hat Ronin. Despite their success, the alliance of survivors begins to fray over ethical and practical differences. Shimura, who heard gossip of Jin's unsavory deeds, warns that dishonor and cowardice lead from the path of samurai to a life of pain and unhappiness. Samurai are meant to inspire people through action, not bring further disgrace upon themselves and their family. Yuna, however, is a more practical mind who understands that terrible choices must be made in times of war for both survival and victory. She distrusts samurai and holds no love for Lord Shimura, who during Yuna's childhood was sent to mercilessly quell her village's rebellion. Just as there is external dissension, so too is Jin internally torn between his duty as samurai leader of Clan Sakai and his expanding role as the Ghost of Tsushima, liberator of his people and symbol of hope. Jin finds it increasingly difficult to reconcile his two identities, exemplified in the siege of Yarikawa, led by Mongol general Temujin. Yarikawa is vital to Lord Shimura's efforts to storm his Mongol-held castle. Its people are known warriors, and adding their skilled numbers to his growing army will tip the balance in Tsushima's favor. But a dark stain in Yarikawa's past has soured relationships between the town and the Jito. Many years ago, the town rebelled against what they thought was unjust treatment by the island's ruling clan, and Shimura was dispatched to ruthlessly suppress their insurrection. Tokiasa Yarikawa was not only the people's champion, he was the greatest of Yarikawa samurai with knowledge of the Dance of Wrath, a secret weapon technique that could cut through any defense. Tokiasa despised the arrogance of Clan Shimura, so led Yarikawa in a revolt, galvanized by his sword skill. Using the Dance of Wrath, he killed Lord Shimura's brothers and uncle, and only through the intervention of Clan Sakai was the rebellion finally quelled. The ruins of old Yarikawa stand as a remnant of his violent actions, and Shimura's memory has been twisted by hatred. The town's survivors and descendants despise the Jito. The wraith known as Yarikawa's Vengeance continues to stalk the old ruins and assist those who pray to it. Years later, Jin Sakai is targeted by the spirit for his blood bond to both clans Shimura and Sakai. But rather than a malevolent force, the spirit is the final descendant of the lost Yarikawa clan, who has preserved her family's infamous Dance of Wrath. Jin, Yuna, and Taka arrive at Yarikawa in the midst of General Temujin's siege and use the siblings' childhood knowledge to sneak past the investment into the town so they might speak with its leaders. Sakai offers to help break the siege and save Yarikawa if it then lends its men to Lord Shimura's army.
いやはや志村殿の甥子がよもやあのクロードの正体とは。知られれば罰されましょう。かつての我が槍川一族のように。それは反乱の報いである。
But negotiations collapse after mere mention of the Jito's name, and Jin decides direct action must be taken to not only prove his value, but compel the town to submit to his request. He, Yuna, and Saka first free the town's captured archers, then rush to Yarikawa's defense after the Mongols break through the gates. Fighting is fiercely intense. Here, Jin embraces fully the brutality of the Ghost when he slaughters and decapitates Temujin in front of the general's forces, causing them to cower and flee for their lives before the vengeful spirit. To save Yarikawa and countless Japanese, Sakai takes one step further from the path of samurai. But Sakai's efforts in Yarikawa earn the townsfolk's deference. They might hold no love for Lord Shimura, but they will gladly rally beneath the Ghost's banner and fight for Tsushima Island. While in Toyotama, Jin has an opportunity to return to Omi, seat of Clan Sakai and his ancestral home, a place he's not been since his father's death. There, his uncle says, Jin can reclaim the honor of Clan Sakai, manifested in his father's samurai armor. Sakai crosses paths again with the elderly Yuriko, housekeeper and caretaker of the clan grounds, and also a mother figure to Jin. The two reminisce on past pleasures and pains. Then, Yuriko imparts her knowledge of medicinal plants, showing Jin how to make poisons with which he can assassinate his enemies. Poison is a weapon for the weak or cowardly, scoffed at by samurai, but of great value to the silent Ghost. When word reaches Jin that the Straw Hat Ronin have been sighted near Fort Koyasan, he seizes the opportunity to put an end to traitorous Ryuzo. Despite his insistence on challenging the Ronin alone, Jin is accompanied by Taka, who's been inspired by the Ghost to remain on Tsushima. Their assault is thwarted, however, as the pair are ambushed and captured by Ryuzo's men. Khotun Khan appears personally and offers Sakai an enticing bargain. He claims Jin can put an end to all the destruction, violence, and death. He need only surrender, pledge his loyalty to the Khan, who will place him as second-in-command for the continued Mongol invasion. But his own code and his hatred of the Khan prevent Jin from agreeing, and in the aftermath, Taka is slain. Jin manages to break from his bindings and unite with Yuna, who upon hearing the death of her brother, blames Sakai for inspiring him to emulate the Ghost. Though their friendship strains, the pair manage to escape the fortress and slay all the Straw Hats save Ryuzo. Further enraged by recent events, Jin urges his uncle to strike Khotun Khan at Shimura Keep. The Mongols' position is heavily fortified and equipped with deadly gunpowder technology. But Lord Shimura's growing army is further supported by a detachment of samurai from the Japanese mainland, led by Lord Oga after they received the pirate Goro's message. Like Shimura, Lord Oga detests the Ghost and warns Sakai against further pursuit of such appalling conduct. Shimura arrays his army in battle formation before the castle's walls. Jin advises his uncle against direct confrontation, believing that fewer lives will be lost and victory achieved if the Ghost could use his skills. But Shimura, samurai to the last, refuses such dishonorable conduct. he leads the Tsushima resistance to slaughter. The Mongols unleash salvos of missiles and incendiaries that tear through ranks of warriors. Disillusioned by the dogma of the samurai code, Jin takes matters into his own hands and alongside Yuna sneaks into the Mongol-controlled fortress, where they assassinate or poison many defenders. Jin confronts Ryuzo one final time in the heart of the keep. The Ronin claims Khotun has again moved further north, ravaging the region of Kameyagata, and pleads for Jin to accept his surrender. Sakai can't avenge himself on the Khan, but in Ryuzo, he finds a target with which to bloody his sword. Their duel sees the leader of the Straw Hats slain. Act 3 opens up in the northernmost part of Tsushima Island, where Khotun Khan has retreated to gather his army and anchor his vessels. With Shimura Keep restored to its rightful lord, the disgrace of Jin's actions are exposed. Yes, victory was achieved, but at what cost? Lord Shimura believes his nephew is no longer samurai. Not only that, he has destabilized the social order of feudal society and as such will be condemned by the shogunate. Shimura begs Jin to cast off the ghost persona, using Yuna as a scapegoat for events. But such a betrayal of trust and friendship is beyond Jin, who gives his equipment to Yuna and ushers the thief to safety before Shimura arrests him. Jin meditates in his cell within the castle and maintains the samurai courage to face punishments leveled upon him. But a report from the outside of Khotun Khan's continued abuse convinces Sakai that Tsushima still needs him, or at least still needs the ghost. He breaks free from Castle Shimura, but is declared an outlaw by his uncle, whose forces pursue Jin to the Kin Sanctuary. Here, Jin uncovers the depths of Khotun's depravity. The Mongol Khan has recreated Jin's poison through experimentation on the helpless Kin people, and intends to unleash the biological weapon during his assault on Kyushu. The shogunate will lose thousands to this poison, and perhaps all of Japan claimed in Mongol conquest. Jin is himself afflicted by the poison, and spared only by the timely intervention of Yuna, who once again saves his life. The pair liberate the frozen Jogaku temple and use it as a forward operating base to coordinate a plan of attack on Khotun Khan directly, who has taken position with his massive army and anchored fleet within the port of Izumi. Sakai again calls on his allies and friends to aid his strategy, who unite under the inspiring banner of his leadership. As Lord Shimura is at odds with Jin, and as his castle blocks many routes to the north, Jin's forces must carve a path through Mongol territory to reach Kameyagata. As Sakai and Yuna survey the port for hidden weaknesses, they uncover a large stockpile of the Mongol poison and determine that assault must begin with little delay. On the horizon, a massive storm builds strength, and the rebels agree to use the typhoon to cover their attack. The night before this ultimate battle, Jin sneaks into Castle Shimura with a note for his uncle, asking for his assistance in the upcoming struggle. Lord Shimura may disagree with Jin, may even resent him, but as Jito, he is responsible for Tsushima's safety, and Sakai gambles that his uncle will answer the call. At last, the fate of Tsushima Island will be decided. Jin and his allies begin their assault on the port, through distraction and ambush, which allows them to thin Mongol ranks before their opponents have an opportunity to counterattack. In the heat of battle, many ships are destroyed and many lives are lost. When the rebels' hope begins to slip, Lord Shimura and his forces take to the field, bolstering resolve as their blades bite Mongol flesh. Confusion and melee allow Jin to sneak past Izumi's defenses and onto the Khan's flagship, anchored in the harbor. The Ghost slices his way through the Khan's personal bodyguard before confronting Khotun directly. Standing before Jin is the source of all his pain, the object of his vengeance, and inadvertently the despoiler of Clan Sakai. The Ghost and the Khan lock blades in a climactic battle, the outcome of which sees both Khotun Khan and Jin Sakai slain. All that remains is the Ghost of Tsushima, born upon the wind of Kamikaze. Khotun gives one final portent before he is killed. The Mongols will return, and in far greater number, to ruin Japan. Jin Sakai gained vengeance and freedom for Tsushima Island, even perhaps all of Japan. at the cost of his honorable reputation. The Kamakura shogunate is informed of Jin's deeds. Clan Sakai is abolished, and by imperial decree, Jin is a traitorous fugitive who must be sentenced to death for his disgrace of the samurai order. Lord Shimura, ever the man of principle, recalls his nephew to Castle Shimura to answer for his crimes. The Jito, no matter how reluctant he may be, must challenge his nephew to a duel on his master's order. This is not only a generational, familial combat, but one of ideology. Are codes and conduct that guide action to simply be cast aside in moments of distress? Is the samurai system too inflexible in its commandments? Do ends justify means, and at what price should honor be maintained? With such questions swirling through each combatant's mind, there are two possible outcomes following Jin's victory over Shimura, but neither alter the ghost's fate. After his defeat, Shimura asks his nephew to kill him in an honorary death befitting a samurai. If Jin complies, he retains some shred of his old way and, bound by the covenant ingrained through his early years, offers Shimura the warrior's death. If Jin denies his uncle, however, then Shimura is spared, but the ghost completely cuts ties with what in his mind is an antiquated and impractical system. In either case, Jin Sakai is forced into exile as an outlaw and enemy of the shogun. But the ghost remains and continues to stand guard over the people of Tsushima Island, a legendary wraith whose tales inspire hope within the people and fear within its enemies. But this isn't the end of the ghost's tale. Tsushima is slowly recovering after Khotun Khan's defeat. Its villages are being rebuilt, its fields resown, and its people optimistic. But Mongol raiders continue to hover close, striking at the unprotected in regions where the law's arms can't reach. When rumors of a bizarre affliction that causes hallucinations, madness, and death spread across the island, the ghost acts swiftly to investigate the source. He confronts and defeats a band of Mongols sent from nearby Iki Island, who claim that they are part of the Eagle clan. The clan is composed of fanatics and madmen loyal to Anksar Khatun, a strange shaman and military commander known simply as the Eagle. The Eagle uses hallucinogens and shamanic medicines to manipulate her followers, dominate their minds, and ensure devotion. The recent bouts of sickness on Tsushima portend a greater attack by the Eagle clan, so Jin travels to Iki Island to uncover the truth and dispatch the Eagle before she claims more victims. Jin's journey through Iki Island is also a journey into the past, as he's forced to confront unresolved trauma and relive his childhood grief that surrounds the death of his father, Kazumasa, an event over which he still feels immense guilt. Jin washes ashore after his vessel shipwrecks and is quickly captured by the Eagle clan as they're in the process of turning all inhabitants of the island over to their cause through the Eagle's medicine. Jin is himself forced to drink this poison, which addles his mind and brings long dormant memories to the fore through hallucinations. Sakai is saved by a mysterious man named Tenzo, a member of Iki natives called the Raiders, who 15 years ago cemented their freedom after emerging victorious in the samurai invasion of the island, the same invasion in which Kazumasa Sakai was slain. Given their pasts and opposing positions, the two men are weary of each other, but an unstable alliance is better than none, and the pair realize they'll need each other to overthrow the Eagle tribe. During an attack on the Mongols, Tenzo learns that Jin isn't simply samurai, but one of Clan Sakai and the son of Kazumasa. His family brought irreparable ruin to Iki Island, but must the son always suffer the sins of the father? Jin claims he is not Kazumasa, and though this revelation strains their already tenuous relationship, the two agree it's best kept secret. Tenzo soon takes Jin to see Fune, leader of the Raiders and coordinator of efforts to oppose the Eagle. Her hatred of the Eagle stems from Fune's own past with narcotics and addictive medicines, which led to the destruction of her daughter Toki, the disgrace of the family, and several deaths. She also had a strong connection to Jin's father, and the pair had grown close while Kazumasa had stayed during his teenage years. Jin maintains his anonymity, however, and earns both Fune and Tenzo's trust by successfully striking the eagle at Kitafure village and Fort Sakai. An even more shocking revelation is brought to light, however, after Tenzo mutters a phrase to a dying Mongol. "May your death benefit all beings." The exact same words Jin had seared into his mind the day his father was slain. That Tenzo, Kazumasa's killer, stands mere feet away from Sakai is too much for him to resist, and struggling for mental clarity against hallucinations, Jin draws his blade on Tenzo. Though the desire for vengeance is great, reason returns and Jin stays his hand, knowing that he'll need Tenzo in his confrontation with the eagle. After sabotaging Mongol forts and reversing many of the Mongol gains on Iki Island, Jin, Fune, and Tenzo decide it's time to confront the eagle directly. They learn that the Mongol leader awaits in Senjo Gorge, a location strategically chosen as it was where Kazumasa Sakai was slain many years ago. Despite Jin's attempt on his life, Tenzo believes he is a good man, that he is better than his father and better than samurai. He stands firmly by Jin during the final attack on the Eagle clan. As they battle, Jin sends Tenzo against Mongol foot soldiers while he challenges the eagle. But this is when her poison gathers strength and hampers his mind. Overcome by hallucinations of the past, Jin is met by Kazumasa, who urges him to kill Tenzo and avenge his father's spirit. To free himself, Jin must cut ties with the past. By accepting the actions of his father, Tenzo, and his own, Jin severs the guilt that binds him. Refusing to let the past control him any longer, Jin Sakai clears his mind and overcomes the debilitating effects of the eagle's poison. He forgoes any notion of retribution and protects Tenzo, turning his blade instead on the eagle. In ruthless combat, the ghost kills the eagle, and with their shamanic leader gone, the rest of the tribe quickly dissolves. Iki Island wins back its freedom as well as its sanity. Jin spares the wounded Tenzo, who continues his mission to help his people. Tenzo learns of Sakai's method for overcoming the hallucinogen, and so begins the process of curing those afflicted. For his actions in helping not only her island but also her family, Kune believes Jin is redeemed and harbors no more ill will on grounds of his birth and past. The winds of forgiveness and reconciliation blow across Iki Island, which begins spreading its own tales of the ghost. With his past confronted, Jin's present has an impregnable foundation, and his future as guardian of Tsushima is bright. Still on the wrong side of the law, the ghost appears where needed, then seamlessly vanishes into smoke. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on the complete story of Ghost of Tsushima. Let me know your thoughts on Jin Sakai, his transformation into the ghost, and what you want to see in the next complete story explained video in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel where content is uploaded frequently. I want to take a moment to thank my amazing patrons over on Patreon. Your support means the world to me and helps the channel continue to improve. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head over to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.